0.5. Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Jackie. Thank you so much for joining my channel again. And today I have my guest speaker, my friend Autry. And today we're going to be talking about how to be an ally or how to just be a good person to the queer community. Cool. Yes? Okay, great.
That's good me.
So first, I must give a disclaimer that although we are learning new information about the LGBTQ plus community, this is only one perspective out of millions, thousands of people. So although today is going to be an educational segment, the perspective that Autry gives isn't the perspective of the entire community. So just keeping that in mind. Is there anything else you want to add?
Nope. I think it's just basically watch a video, learn what you can learn, and then go search more videos and learn more different points of view, and they'll probably mention things that we don't cover. So
yes,
become educated.
Awesome. Let's get started. How do you self-identify?
Alright, so for my gender identity, I identify as androgynous, and for my sexuality, I'm somewhere on the asexual spectrum.
Okay. And I must have outdated information because I do not know what
androgynous.
Androgynous.
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
I haven't heard that term before.
Right? My knowledge on this is still a little outdated because back when I was trying to identify myself and going through the teen years, right? That was back like 2008, 2009. So my idea of androgyny is someone who has masculine and female traits.
Okay.
Masculine, feminine, there we go, traits. So you can't naturally just assume what gender they are.
Right.
One person could call them a she, one person call them a he next minute. It's someone who just blends in very naturally and has both traits and doesn't look cis-passing to either of the typical binary genders.
But even with both feminine and masculine traits, as well as clothing, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. You should never assume that they're then androgynous, because assuming anything could be incorrect and also offensive. Right?
Yeah. Assumptions usually aren't the best, right?
No.
And so, yeah, if you do see someone who has more androgynous traits, don't assume that they identify as androgynous, or I think more popularly now, or more well-known now, is gender fluid, or agender, or non-binary. Just because someone has androgynous traits doesn't mean they identify within the queer community even. They may still identify with more the binary of genders. And there are like androgynous clothings, like you mentioned, where I think even if you type in androgynous clothes, there are queer community based brands that are trying to make clothing that is more androgynous and not cater to a specific body type. It's more like unisex clothing and everything.
And that would also be for like non-binary and gender fluid people.
Yeah,
so it'd be like
they'd probably, if they identify as gender fluid or non-binary, they'd probably like to wear a lot of androgynous clothing.
Okay.
Though everyone has their preferences and still pick clothing that is typically found in the men's or women's, section.
Right. Okay.
You just ignore the sections and just pretend the whole store is one type of store and just go wherever you want.
Right.
That's what I do. You're doing
okay.
Public.
It's just another term.
Yeah.
So another term I learned from Autry. Oh, I forgot to ask. What are your pronouns for today?
Oh yeah. They them is
they
my
them
preferred pronouns.
Great. Okay. And because you're androgynous, will it continuously be they them, or will there be days where you would prefer to be called another?
Yeah, for me, I don't have any fluidity. In my choice of pronouns, I tend to view myself as very genderless.
Okay.
Whereas others do go through the fluidity of their gender. But for me, I'm not very out to a lot of people. In college, it was much more of a welcoming environment. And it was really only my last semester in college or last year where I came out to people around me. And that was more to be like a queer representative. Queer representative for more queer people on the college campus.
Right.
Rather than for me at that point. As of now, in my workplace and my family life, I don't feel comfortable with they-them pronouns, or outing myself to them with they-them pronouns. So I just am happy with whatever pronouns I get. It gets a little uncomfortable more with like prolonged usage of certain pronouns.
Okay.
So most people think of me as a woman, as a cis woman. And so that's what I tend to get the most often, and that can get uncomfortable for me at times. So I do purposely try to dress a little more androgynous some days if I don't want to get those female pronouns. But yeah.
And you first came out to like me in college, you at first identified as gender fluid, and now you stated that you are no longer fluid and you are now androgynous. Is it common for people within the community to change, and is it encouraged, or are people like as soon as they identify they should stay that way?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'd say it's fairly common today in the queer community for people to move around between identities because there's so many now that a lot of people are still learning about and realizing what fits them best. And even just, 5 years of difference, what that can make for you and how you see yourself and wanting to find an identity that best suits you in that moment and explaining it to people. For me, when I picked gender fluid, it was because at the time I didn't really realize that androgyny was still a identity that I could have. I mean, it was back in like 2008, 2009 when I was still looking, but then now we hear more about gender fluid and agender and non-binary. And so I was like, okay, well maybe I'm one of those, and maybe those are more like terms to identify with rather than androgynous. Maybe androgynous is a style, And I can say my style is androgynous, but maybe that's an incorrect way to refer to myself.
Okay.
But I did do a Google search. Apparently androgyny is still a term. And so I feel personally more comfortable saying androgynous.
This is good to learn because I haven't seen you in a couple months since graduating together. Awesome.
Yes.
So it's good to learn how things have progressed and how you are like becoming comfortable.
Yeah. Being who I am.
Yes. While on this topic, in college I had a situation where I misused a pronoun for a person, and they corrected me saying that they were he, him. And that was first semester during the fall. And then come spring semester, I noticed that they were wearing dresses and skirts, and I was scared to ask them again if they had changed their pronouns or if they were trying to join the movement of, skirts and, painting your fingernails shouldn't have a gender. Usually it's feminine, but some people are trying to make it more, like gender neutral, like that men or those who identify as male can paint their nails or wear dresses. So I was scared to ask, and I don't know. What should I have done?
Gotcha. Yeah. So best advice is always talk to the person, right? And I think there's this idea that if you ask one too many times or something, they're gonna get angry at you, right? And no one wants to have someone angry at them. Yeah, right. So, and I think it's all about your intent and your intentions.
Okay.
If you have malicious intent, if you're just trying to get the latest gossip or something, people can always sense that. They can sense why you're asking a certain question or something, and they can also sense when you're just naturally curious or when you just want to refresh your knowledge, right? And make sure you're treating them with the respect and pronouns that they would like to be treated with.
Right.
So in that one, I wouldn't just, ask that person, like notice it, be like, hey, I've noticed you started wearing this more. Do you still identify with male pronouns, or is there a different pronoun usage I should use with you? Would have been my recommendation on that one.
Because I wasn't uncomfortable with what they were wearing. I was scared to offend or hurt their feelings. And my interaction with them almost like ceased completely. And I loved them as a person. They were an amazing individual with a great personality. And I cut that friendship short because I was so scared to hurt them or be annoying that I couldn't understand. And another situation was within my church. There was a person who was transgender, and I had misleading information from people other than this actual person
Mm-hmm.
that their pronouns were her, she versus he, him. And we didn't, as a community, we didn't know where they were on their like transitioning period.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if there was a certain timeline where you officially changed pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
Is like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
So I wouldn't say a lot of people tend to feel like there's a certain timeline.
Mm,
Often really it's just when someone says, "Hey, I'm trans. These are my pronouns." You start using those pronouns because they've introduced that to you.
okay.
And
Okay.
it's more of they've realized who they are and they're ready to start moving in forward with who they are. And not everyone's gonna have like medical surgeries or hormones along their transition. Not everyone feels comfortable or wants to have modifications done to their body or want to take hormones.
Okay.
And so it's kind of a discussion right now in the community where you shouldn't be forcing trans people to go through these surgeries in order to see them as valid.
Ah, okay.
Because sometimes people will just outright ignore their pronoun preference if they think they're not passing. Like if someone says,
Ah,
"I'm a trans woman," and you go, "You don't look like a trans woman. So until you get the surgeries done and you sound like a trans woman, I'm gonna refer to you with male pronouns." That's
oh.
just right. That's very disrespectful
Mm-hmm.
because they've told you their preference and they've told you who they are as a human being, and you've decided that because you don't see them that way, you're not gonna respect their preferences.
Okay. Yeah, that can be hurtful.
Yeah, so for that trans person that was in your community, it sounds like it's in one of those unfortunate circumstances where a trans person gets outed, maybe with their permission, maybe without their permission, we wouldn't know necessarily, but often happens a lot when someone's like, "I know a trans person," or "I have a trans family member," right? Not everyone who's trans wants you to go around and be like, "Hey, my niece is trans," and then later you meet that niece and you're like, "Oh, that's the trans niece." Right?
Oh,
They just want to
yeah.
be seen as a normal human being, right?
Right. So I heard you using the word queer,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, because I have outdated knowledge, that used to be an insult, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it probably still is, depending on how maliciously you use it.
Intent all
But
over again, yeah.
how is it used within the community? Is
Yeah.
it an
Mhm.
identifying factor, or is
Mhm.
it just kind of, I guess,
Open-ended.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's still some people who don't like the usage of queer in the community.
Okay.
A lot of this is more the older generation of queer people because they grew up in the time where queer is being used as an insult against them, right? And I haven't been looking into the discourse over this, but it seems like a lot of people are finding that queer is okay to use now, and it's giving a way for people to identify if they are still exploring or if they don't feel like their gender or sexuality fits a specific niche. A great example would be there's a webcomic artist named Erica Moen. I don't know how to say her last name. Never heard her last name said, so I have no idea if I just said it right. But she made a webcomic where she basically, it was based on her life and what she was going through at the time. And she identified as a lesbian because she found herself attracted to women
Mm-hmm.
for a good amount of time, right? So she's like, okay, I'm a lesbian. I love women.
Okay.
So then she came across a man that she found herself attracted to.
Huh.
At first, one time thing, whatever. Well, then she got married to that man, right? She's like, okay, well, how am I supposed to identify now?
Right.
I was a lesbian, but there's this one man I have fallen in love with and I'm attracted to, and that's who I've chosen to spend my life with. And so she was confused, like should I identify? Straight doesn't feel right, lesbian doesn't feel right, bisexual doesn't feel right, because in her mind, bisexual is kind of like having almost an equal amount of attraction, right, to the two genders. So she ended up just identifying as queer because that felt most comfortable for her, felt the most opening and welcoming to her experiences and how she felt. So she ended up just identifying as queer. So it can be great for individuals like that who, just aren't sure of their relationships and don't feel like they fit a niche and they don't want to say they are something if they don't feel that they, you know, really identify accurately as
Okay. I am curious about the plus part. I don't know
Yeah.
what that entails.
Plus is just all the other identities.
Is that the sexual identities now?
Oh, it's like everything.
That's everything.
So, I mean, you could just go LGBT plus. right? I got into the habit of saying LGBTQA plus because when we were in college,
Yeah.
the organization, the queer organization on campus was LGBTQA plus. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender.
Asexual? For the A part?
Yeah, asexual for the A part, and then queer for the Q part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the plus part is
I think it's other identities, yeah. That you're just not including. I mean, you could turn and go LGBT plus. It's just I got into the habit of including Q and A during our time in college.
And I've gotten into the habit of LGBTQ.
Yeah, and not including the A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I do remember in college, though, when they added the A, I was like, okay, gotta get in the habit of saying that.
Just gotta try it, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the plus is just a great way of being like, hey, there's many more, There's many more identities a part of this community. We're just not gonna sit here for 10 minutes trying to include everyone and then get upset if we miss somebody.
Got it. So on this acronym topic, there's been some discourse over what the plus is, and you said that it was for the other identities, but some people outside the LGBTQ plus community say that allies are in the plus, and
or that they replace the A.
Yes,
the A is what that stands for.
I know. Yeah. I think it's asexual. But
yeah.
So.
But yeah, before asexual, like asexuality is still a new term for a lot of the people, right? So everyone did think the A was for allies, and I don't know. Maybe originally that was the intent. I don't know. I don't know when they started making up the acronym if that was the intent. But now it's agreed. A lot of queer people agree upon that A doesn't necessarily stand for allies.
Okay.
Because allies aren't necessarily in the queer community. They can support the queer community. But just because you're an ally, that kind of includes that you're not really a queer person yourself.
Right.
You're just supporting the queer community. So you don't necessarily have to have your own acronym to be included. Because you're not necessarily in the queer community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's that's kind of like my opinion on things, that if you aren't within the community and you support it, then that's all you are. You're just kind of like this, like you're uplifting them, but you're not
putting yourself into their listing of people.
Yeah, so I just want to ask that because there's been
debating.
People outside the community have been saying we're part of it. I'm like, are we?
I don't know.
Next question is when a person, like myself, accidentally uses the wrong pronouns, how do you recover from that?
Yeah. Never, ever go. So my friend, she really oh my god, I am so sorry, I'm so terrible, I didn't mean to be a terrible person. Don't
do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah. Because you just drew so much attention. Much attention right then there. Like, I understand, the need to immediately apologize because you realize you possibly have hurt this person or made them very uncomfortable, but drawing attention to your mistake causes, everyone else that's a part of the conversation to hone in on your mistake, and now they're like, oh, okay, everyone knows something's off about me because you had to correct my pronouns.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So easily just be like, oh, if you're referring to someone you met up on friends, go, oh yeah, my friend, he really likes this. That way, that happens all the time where people, say the wrong name, say the wrong pronoun. Yeah. It's a mistake that could easily be overlooked and that people probably won't really notice later on.
Okay.
In the conversation, right? And so that way you're recovering. It's kind of like a subtle, hey, sorry, friend, kind of a thing, right? Letting them know that you realize your mistake and you're working on it.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you really owe them an apology, after the conversation, going up to them and just be like, hey, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry for my slip up. Just try not to make so much attention drawn in to your mistake at that time.
And I know that I have the sorry syndrome, meaning that I apologize for things that aren't even my fault. And it will take time for me to if I slip up on a pronoun,
try not to apologize.
Try not to be like, oh, I'm sorry, and then and draw attention, because that's the last thing I want to do. It's just kind of like a gut reaction of sorry. Yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah, everything takes practice.
Yes.
So, a lot of people, when they're first coming out to you and if they have different pronoun preferences, that they understand are going to take everyone a little bit to get used to. A lot of people are understanding, right? They don't come in and be like, okay, you've known me for 5 years now. I'm going to switch my pronouns up on you, and I expect you to 100% get it right. Right? Not a lot of people are going to come in with that expectation. They're going to see, again, your intent. Are you trying to, use the correct pronouns? Do you slip up and then try and make it better? Or do you slip up and then just keep using the wrong pronoun, because you don't want to bother to fix it?
Do you have any YouTubers to recommend for people who are trying to be better allies or learn more about the community who are not within the community?
Yeah, there's a great number of queer YouTubers out there. One of my personal favorites would be Ash Hardell. They make a lot of great videos. I'm trying to remember what their specific pronoun preferences. I think they're gender fluid or non-binary.
Okay.
So I think they're okay with any pronoun usage. It's just like with me, they don't want prolonged usage. But so they've gone through a whole journey of finding themselves, finding their identity, changing it up, and the backlash that can come with changing their identity. And then also being with a partner, and having their relationship start at one point where they both identified as specific people, and then how their relationship has grown and changed as they have grown and changed. So it's a very wholesome, great YouTube channel. They talk about a lot of things that's maybe a little more controversial within the queer community even. So if you're trying to learn more about that, I know I had to learn a little more about the idea of non-binary people saying that they are also trans. The idea behind that is a little controversial because trans people tend to go, I am one of the binary genders, right? And so for a non-binary person to say, oh, I'm trans, that upsets the trans community. It sounds
contradictory.
Yeah.
Sounds.
Yeah. So there's, and Ash Hardell covers that and like why they themselves call themselves trans even though they are non-binary. And they cover a lot of great topics. So Ash Hardell's like easily one of my favorite ones.
Okay.
Puts a lot of work into their videos and their editing and just does a baller job. So
great. Okay. Then I'll make sure to have their profile or their link below so that everyone can look at that as well.
Yeah. We can always include more. If we were to sum this whole video up, 2 seconds. Not that, because I can't talk that.
I was about to say.
Right? I wish. If you want to be a good ally, just keeping communication open between everyone in your life and all the queer people in your life. Educating yourself. Don't necessarily go find your nearest queer person and be like, hey, tell me about all these queer things. Like, you're fine. You're cool, girl. Because I know you want to bring a queer person to your audience and hear from a queer person themselves, right? And that's great. But, I mean, you shouldn't go around finding queer people to answer all your questions.
Right.
Especially if you could easily Google them. Yes. Like, Google exists. It's pretty great. You can use it to find where the nearest Pizza Hut is in your location. You can use it to find what does transgender mean, right? So, using Google, educating yourself on questions that you may have. And then, if you really need to get more in depth or find specifics, either finding videos where, like, Ash Hardell covers controversial topics and everything.
Right.
Or, going to your local queer person and be like, hey, I feel like we have a good relationship. I was looking this up. This is what I've learned. Can you help me further? Because there's parts I'm confused on. And, like, you've done that before, right? Where you run into these ideas and you're like, well, I'm confused on this and I don't understand it. And then we have a conversation together. And it's great because I don't feel like I am necessarily being the representative of the queer people. I'm just helping you with an insider site.
My information center.
Right? There you go. So, yeah. So I think it's just keeping communication open, having good intentions always. I know I said the word intentions a lot. But that's really what matters is whether your intentions are good or not when you're speaking to people and working, communicating with them. So.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining me on this segment, and of course, thank you to Autry for all your helpful information. I definitely learned a lot, like from today, and how to be a better ally to the people in the LGBTQ plus community. It's long acronym.
You're getting there, yeah. You'll soon say it as fast as I do.
And I do want to pose a question to everyone. what was Thomas Sanders' introduction?
Oh yeah, hey guys and gals and non-binary pals.
I think that is adorable. And although I can't copyright that because it's amazing, I do want to reference everyone who has been so generous as to subscribe to my channel. I want to give you all like little nicknames. And if you haven't noticed, I love plants, and there's more behind the camera.
It's more like an obsession.
It's an obsession. So I was thinking of like plant-themed nicknames for everyone, and Audrey came up with two great ideas of like, hey, saplings,
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 yeah. Sprouts.
or sprouts.
Yeah.
So if you have any, what is it? Any recommendations
Yeah.
or ideas, please list them below in the comment section. I do want to like become more like personal with my audience because you guys are amazing. So thank you so much for supporting me. Yay. Have an amazing rest of your day, everyone. Bye.